Good afternoon and welcome to the City Club of Cleveland. I'm Paul Clark, the Regional President for PNC, and I'm happy to welcome you to our annual State of Downtown panel discussion. Through its charitable sponsorships, PNC supports economic development initiatives in our community where our employee volunteers, community leaders, local clients, and residents can drive success together. The impact and measurable success that Downtown Cleveland Alliance has had on this community over the past 10 years is impressive and inspiring, and we are proud to be a strategic partner to this organization. As you know, on August 4th, 2014, members of the Republican National Committee officially approved Cleveland as the host city for the party's 2016 convention by a unanimous vote. That announcement has accelerated the construction of massive downtown developments such as the construction of several new hotels and the public square renovation, all of which are slated to be completed before the arrival of the RNC. While it appears everyone is focused on July 2016, the truth is that the impact of these projects will be felt in the city and the region as a whole for years to come. Now we have to ask ourselves, how best can we leverage the international spotlight to attract new and current assets to the city's urban core? How can we encourage sustainable downtown growth beyond the RNC? And what development lessons can our downtown learn from other cities that have served as the backdrop for major international events? We've comprised a panel of local and national leaders to help us explore some of these issues. Here to guide our discussion today is ideastream reporter and producer Darrielle Snipes. Ms. Snipes is a seasoned, award-winning journalist who has worked in Oklahoma City, Baltimore, Detroit, and Indianapolis before coming to Cleveland. She's covered numerous stories, including tornadoes touching down in Oklahoma, Timothy McVeigh's execution in Indiana, and the Detroit Police Department being taken over by the Department of Justice. Originally from Evanston, Illinois, Ms. Snipes is a graduate of Michigan State University and a member of the National Association of Black Journalists. I now turn the program over to you, Ms. Snipes, to introduce our esteemed panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, and I just want to apologize for my Spartans last week. I know everyone, if you were watching the basketball game, it was tough. Well, as Paul said, my name is Darrielle Snipes, and I'm with ideastream, and I am so excited to be here to talk about the state of downtown Cleveland. Real fast, I just moved back to Cleveland about 3 months ago, and very excited to see a lot of the changes that are happening in downtown Cleveland, and happy to be talking about this today, especially with our esteemed panelists. We've had a couple of conversations about it, and they have a lot to say, so it's going to be exciting. So let me introduce our panel. In the middle is Paul Levy, who is the founding chief executive of Philadelphia's Center City District and has been serving in that capacity since 1991. The Philadelphia's City Center District is a business improvement district, much like downtown Cleveland Alliance, with a $22 million annual operating budget that supplements municipal services with programs and securities, hospitality, cleaning, place marketing, promotion, and planning for the Central Business District of Philadelphia. Paul has been a true partner to the downtown Cleveland, serving as a trusted counselor and mentor in the formation of Downtown Cleveland Alliance as the business improvement district for Cleveland's City Center. He has been equally as supportive to DCA through their past 2 renewal processes and downtown property owners of the City of Cleveland. Please help me welcome Paul Levy. And next we have Tammy Dorr, President and CEO of Downtown Denver Partnership. Under the umbrella of Downtown Denver Partnership, a $20 million organization, Tammy oversees multiple entities, including the Downtown Denver Business Improvement District, the Downtown Theater District, and the Downtown Denver Events, Colorado's largest producer of public events. They lead economic development and urban planning efforts as well, and her organization produces popular community events that bring more than 1 million people downtown Denver each year that include Denver Startup Week, A Taste of Colorado, 9 News Parade of Lights, and New Year's Eve fireworks downtown. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Tammy Dorr. And finally, but not least, our hometown gentleman. Please help me welcome Joe Marinucci, President and CEO of the Downtown Cleveland Alliance. Joe's career encompasses more than 33 years of economic development and experience. Prior to joining DCA, he served as Vice President of Real Estate Development for Cleveland's Playhouse Square Foundation, where he directed real estate activities for the country's second largest theater district. He has served as Chairman of the Board for the International Economic Development Council and has served as Treasurer for the National Council of Urban Economic Development, IEDC's predecessor organization. Please help me welcome Joe. So again, we are talking about the state of downtown Cleveland. As many of you know, it is changing. If you just look at the skyline, it is changing. If you're walking the streets of downtown Cleveland, you can just feel the energy and all the construction that you have to maneuver past. So I was walking here from ideastream. I had to walk under a couple of things so things wouldn't fall on my head. So that's very exciting to see all the growth that is happening in downtown Cleveland. And we want to talk about that, really. And we want to start with Joe. And you, as everyone knows, and we've been talking about it since it was announced, the RNC is coming in a couple of months. And so where do you see, how are things going to get prepared for all the people that are going to be here in July?
To step back, I think things are going very, very well. As you know, Paul indicated in almost about a year and a half ago when we were awarded the convention, one of the neat things in the process was that we came together as a community. The civic sector, the nonprofit sector, the business sector all came together along with the city of Cleveland and Cuyahoga County to put together an aggressive campaign to land the convention here. And the beauty of it is that collaboration approach has continued. So the host committee really is made up of all these civic partners, nonprofit organizations like the Alliance, like Destination Cleveland, like the Greater Cleveland Partnership, along with the city and county. And we're all working very, very collaboratively to create the platform which would allow the RNC to come and really have a fabulous experience here in Cleveland, but also allow us as a community to also fully experience the benefits of not only having the convention here during that week in July, but on a long-term basis, leverage that experience into additional economic development and business opportunities. So from my perspective, it's been a great experience. It's a lot of work, obviously, and there's a lot yet to do, but we're seeing so much investment. We're seeing so many things accelerated as a result of the convention coming, things like Public Square, things like the hotel capacities that we're bringing 3 new hotels online this year. When you overlay that with the amount of energy being created through the housing that's come into downtown Cleveland, we now have 14,000 people that live in downtown Cleveland. Small compared to my colleagues here to my right, but a great increase for us. It's about a 79% increase in the last 10 years in terms of our base. And we think with the projects that are online, we'll be very shortly at 18,000 in terms of our population base and rapidly approaching that 20,000 mark, which is in many ways is the threshold experience. But again, from my perspective, we've accomplished a lot. And one of the things I think that will be a remnant of the convention coming here is the collaboration and the interaction of the civic, the business, and the governmental community working towards a goal of this stature. And again, I think we're going to be very, very successful in that.
Great, and I know that we definitely want to be successful after the convention. And Tammy, Denver hosted the DNC, and so just give us some advice maybe about what Cleveland should do or what you guys did to make sure that you had a successful convention, but then also after with building relationships.
Well, I guess to start off, as we kicked off to prepare for the DNC, people were nervous. How many people in the room are nervous about the RNC? Raise your hands high and proud, please. Okay, it's all right. I'm here to tell you it is okay. It is natural. This is a really big event. It is a big deal. And we felt the same way, right? You're on the world stage. There's a lot going on. So the key is, and really how we looked at it was, start off by thinking this is about your city, and it's about all of you. The RNC, that's a sidebar. That's just what's bringing everyone here. And if you begin to look at that, you will be able to put in place a lot of things that will really dramatically impact your city for the very long run. A couple of key things I'll highlight that we really benefited from, and some will apply to Cleveland, and some, you'll have your own path. But certainly infrastructure. There's nothing that gets infrastructure, public space cleanup, public space redevelopment done faster than company coming. So, the company's coming, and you are already hard at work at that. That's a great benefit. Secondly, the other benefit is really bringing your community together. So I think that Cleveland's a really collaborative place. I'm very familiar with the city, and I think that is an awesome benefit of the community. But you will really see what collaboration's all about when you all really start working cross-functionally to pull this off. The benefits are lasting from that and will catalyze many other projects in the future. And then finally, the other really big impact is how do you use this platform for relationship building? One, with Washington, because guess what? They're all coming. And two, how do you look at it as a reverse economic development trade mission? You know what? You can spend a lot of money going around the world and around the country to meet with every company and showcase your city. But now you've got a platform where they're all coming here. So it's being really strategic and making sure that you set the stage with the right types of meetings and the right types of marketing and platform so that when they come, you are ready to showcase, build the relationships, and get them to bring business to your city. And those were our biggest impacts overall. Not to mention, really, a great sense of civic pride, because truly when it's done, I'm not going to kid you all, you're really tired. Because it's a lot of work, but it's all good.
And I know we definitely have a great civic pride. And Joe, I mean, a lot of people, 50,000 people coming to downtown Cleveland for 1 week. I mean, but can you just talk about, trying to get the locals to come downtown? Because, right now their perception is they want to stay away or they're a little worried. That's how it is a couple months out. But what is Downtown Cleveland Alliance trying to do to make them get downtown?
As Tammy indicated, when the announcement occurred that the RNC was coming, I think there was this swelling of civic pride. Everybody felt great. Everybody felt excited. That's been replaced a little bit by the apprehension I think that Tammy was referencing. And I think part of our challenge now is to understand that this is an experience that all of us can participate in. And we've seen it before, whether it was for the NBA Finals last year, whether it was when the Avengers production came to downtown Cleveland a few years ago. And although traffic was difficult and it was crowded and it was a little bit painful, everybody loved it. And I think that's the type of environment we want people to be comfortable with. If you're working downtown, we want you to continue to work downtown. Maybe you leave a little early the days of the convention are here, or maybe you stay late and participate in some of the civic activities that are going to be in place to really allow Clevelanders to experience the convention. But that's the key, I think, is to get people comfortable with the event and understand that they don't need to fear it, they need to embrace it as an opportunity for us to position ourselves and, again, create a great experience for our community.
And Paul, 1 week after the RNC, the DNC is happening, I mean, what are you guys doing in Philly?
Nothing at all. We're just sort of sleeping through it. I think we have the experience having hosted the RNC in 2000, having had the Pope last summer and the DNC coming a week after yours. You get into a rhythm of these. I think Tammy's exactly correct. These are great events to accelerate all the things you wanted to get done. So in 2 years from now, think about the next event so you can do the next series of things. So that moving forward, the things that have been in the pipeline but have been delayed for a variety of reasons, I think is incredibly important. I'd echo what Tammy said about the business attraction side of this. Major corporate sponsors are coming into town, and there are relationships that your various businesses can build here. TV cameras look for things to find. So you've got a great opportunity to showcase all the attractions of the city and region. They're going to be looking for stories. I understand the RNC is taking the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Well, that's going to be on television. So you've got lots of things which build your tourism marketing strategy for the future. And I know there's both a huge volume of hotels you've built and some anxiety what happens afterwards. You're getting into the convention business big time with the RNC. You're going to learn how to do that. You're going to learn the infrastructure that you may need to strengthen. But you want 3 more of these. I don't mean the conventions. You want conventions that are going to fill every single hotel room. So this is a dry run. You're going to go through this. And the goal will be how you continue to have major conventions come into town, because what they do is drive restaurants, they'll drive cultural activity, they'll drive retail, and particularly the hospitality industry is a major employer of people without college degrees. So as much as we're trying to get high-skilled people in our city, the hospitality industry is a great employment vehicle for people who may not be there with a college degree. So think about this as a long-term investment in building an industry you haven't been playing in active in a long time.
And so Cleveland is definitely trying to get where your city is, Paul, and your city is Tammy, with the State of Downtown report coming out today. So, I mean, Paul, the City Center's 2015 State of Downtown reported that you state that you have over 180,000 residents. Nearly half all jobs in Philadelphia are in your city center that attract businesses, and improving public education continues to make your city strong. Tammy, Denver's reports that 164% increase in your downtown population, offering a 24/7 lifestyle and a vast amount of retail and amenities. That's where Cleveland is trying to get. So tell us, you know, in the difference that you see in Cleveland 10 years ago, and what is the evolution and the development that needs to happen in Cleveland so that we can be like you guys?
Well, we're always looking for somebody to be like, right? But Cleveland's got a pretty exciting and innovative journey ahead of it in terms of what this city's brand is. And I think I can see in the public realm and space development the new projects in terms of residential that are coming down here, and how do you attract the future workforce. And we talk a lot about generation, the millennials, but Generation Z is who you're really looking at right now. You are.
Comes after them.
That's right. Well, then you, they're going to be really big. So, but I think that that's what we really strategically looked at, is what do we need to build so that they would come, and you are all doing that. It's great public realm. It's a real walkable city. It's local amenities, local restaurants and local coffee shops. And that's the brand that attracts people to a place that's very livable. I mean, there's a lot of other bigger pieces, but the truth is, when you decide where you're going to live, you pick your neighborhood. And those are some of the components. Back to the Republican National Convention, what's your story? What is the story you want to tell the world about Cleveland? Because you need 3 or 4 things that you are telling over and over and over. And if that's about entrepreneurship, or if that's about the future generations moving here, or the very cool downtown lifestyle, know the story and repeat it, because as Paul said, there are cameras everywhere. But I do see a lot of what you're doing just exactly in line with what Denver really worked to do. And frankly, this is a really great city that's extremely walkable. So the bones are all there. We really had to build them.
Yeah, I would just, taking advantage of my gray hair, looking around the room, there are people here who remember when the story about our cities was just population decline, job loss, people leaving. I have a great aerial photograph of Tammy's downtown from 1975. It is nothing but surface parking lots. So those of us old enough to live through that, we are on an incredible upcycle for cities across the country. So we are seeing our downtowns diversify in ways that it's no longer just office or no longer just healthcare. It's arts and culture, it's restaurants, it's residential, it's the hospitality industry. So all of us are going through this diversification process where investment wants to be back in cities. We've got economic forces, we've got cultural forces, and we've got demographic forces which are working in our direction, but do nothing and they won't come. So I think it's a real opportunity we've all had to capitalize on attracting people back. I agree with Tammy. You have an infrastructure not dissimilar to Philadelphia, old historic buildings that had no value 30 years ago that you're breathing new life into, taking advantage of historic rehab tax credits. They're hotels, they're residential. The younger demographic values authenticity, what we considered old, right, is authentic now. And that has really become a huge draw. So I think you have an opportunity. I agree with it. Tammy says, you're not just hosting the RNC, you're not just doing something for this, you are rebuilding the downtown, you are building an economy here that is sustainable over the next 15 to 20 years. And so capitalize on this, get over the, oh my God, too many people are going to be here. It's going to be fun, it's going to be crazy, but it will be a real landmark for you in terms of hosting major events in your downtown.
And if I can add to what Paul just said, the point about get over about too many people coming, that's not the worst problem. The worst problem is people don't come. In Denver, there were a few companies early on. There was all this talk about, oh, we should shut down companies and we should shut down businesses because there's going to be traffic and people won't come. Oh my gosh, it was so dramatic. But seriously, there were only a couple companies that said, well, we're going to let our employees, work from home that day. And guess what? They all came downtown because that was the place to be, because why wouldn't you want to be at one of the most powerful symbols of democracy in the world, to come to a city and be part of all of this activity and to see it live. So yeah, there was a lot of drama about too many people coming, and the reality was that's the last thing we should have worried about. And people just embraced it. It's very powerful, very powerful.
And Joe, I have to ask, it's kind of interesting, how things happen. The state of downtown Cleveland, your report comes out today, and then we hear news that Dan Gilbert is buying the Avenue at the Tower Cities, and it exactly goes in line with what you guys want to see happen here in the downtown Cleveland area. Is to see that more retail comes downtown as more people come downtown. What would be your hope to see to happen at the Avenue?
Well, to build on what Paul was talking about a few minutes ago, we've got some great historic assets. We've got some great architecture. We've got some great place-making opportunities in some of those buildings. The Avenue, as you know, has been in transition. I think the neat thing is Dan Gilbert and his team are making major bets in legacy cities. We know they've done some great things and are doing some great things in downtown Detroit. They've been major investors in Cleveland. They've owned a number of assets. Obviously, the Cavaliers are the most visible of those in the queue, but the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, what was the old Higbee office building, now Jack Cleveland Casino. I got to get that name right. But what we really look forward to working with Bedrock and their team is how do we reposition the Avenue to make it, again, a retail asset. Because as we know, Cleveland at one point was a major retail center. Now that changed the way a lot of legacy cities changed. Paul's base was a little different, so I don't think he ever experienced some of the outmigration of retail that we did. But we know we have an opportunity, and we know that retailers are now reinvigorated in terms of their interest in Cleveland. So another outcome that we hope to achieve through the RNC is, again, that companies that will take another look, or companies that are now thinking about it, will be able to make a decision to come. And we think having partners of the stature of Bedrock Real Estate Services, again, one of the companies of Dan Gilbert, will give us that added cachet of having a partner who can bring those types of retailers back into downtown. Now, that's not to say that some of our homegrown retailers are vitally important to what we do on a day-to-day basis. There's no better example of that than Heinen's right across the corner. Again, a regional Cleveland company, a family-owned company. They've made a bet on downtown Cleveland, and we really appreciate it. That was followed by another homegrown company, Geiger's, which went right next door on Euclid Avenue. We need more of those. But we also have to overlay that with national tenants. And that gives us the diversity that we need from a retail portfolio, again, to make sure that people are comfortable. And, by the way, will help in terms of our housing strategies, because again, the more retail we can create, the more housing we can bring to downtown, and vice versa, and that all feeds on itself. So the announcement today was a great announcement because we've got a significant national partner who we're going to be working with going forward at the Avenue.
Great, and one more question before we take your questions, so get ready with your questions. But what do you think that we can do to capture the attention of business leaders during the convention to grow business development in downtown Cleveland? I'll throw it out to the panel.
Well, clearly, you've got people coming into town. You have other businesses doing business with them. There's hosting of different groups here. There's opportunities to connect. Our chamber put together a huge sell piece to locate. We had advertising and communication about Philadelphia as a business location. You're simply getting in front of people who may not automatically be there. So I think that's a key part of it.
Mm-hmm. And being very tactical in that planning, strategic, yes, but being also very tactical. There's a lot going on that week. Identifying parcels for redevelopment, identifying opportunities for companies to partner with local companies, and then work with corporations who their clients are coming in to arrange opportunities to get in front of them and to do presentations and to tour the city and to meet the civic leaders and other corporate leaders. We hosted a lot of CEO dinners with our local CEOs, very intimate hosting events with CEOs visiting the city, all about building the relationships. So maybe you didn't see it all happen in the next 6 months after the convention, but I can guarantee you in the next couple of those years, those relationships evolved into increased investment, new development opportunities, and other business attraction. Absolutely.
And our host committee, I think, is planning to do the same type of interaction. Again, with Destination Cleveland, the Alliance, Greater Cleveland Partnership, our chamber, we're thinking through now ways that we can interact with people that are going to be coming to the city. The other thing I think that'll be maybe a little unusual from our perspective is, and this goes back to when we were pitching the RNC, there were actually so many people who had not touched Cleveland in a long, long time or had never been to Cleveland. And I think when we brought them, for example, the committee during the site selection process to the stages of Playhouse Square, and they had an opportunity to take pictures underneath the chandelier, it changed their image of Cleveland. And I think the opportunity for these business leaders to see Cleveland, to see the amenities we have, to see the assets we have, to see the investment opportunities that we have. And now we're seeing a lot of in-migration of capital in terms of some of the buildings that are being bought and sold. Used to be only Clevelanders that were doing that. Now we're seeing national firms and equity sources that are coming to Cleveland and looking for returns on a real estate basis. So the ability, again, for people who've not touched Cleveland or maybe have never been here to see the assets that we have and then overlay a strong business development strategy, using Tammy's words, a reverse trade mission strategy, and make sure that we follow up and we talk with them after the fact and hopefully bring them back and land a deal or two as a result of it.
Great. Well, does anybody have questions in the audience?
Paul's got a brief.
Oh, sorry.
This afternoon, we're enjoying a panel discussion on the state of downtown featuring Tammy Dorr, President and CEO of Downtown Denver Partnership, Paul Levy, President and CEO of the Center City District, and Joe Marinucci, President and CEO of the Downtown Cleveland Alliance. Our moderator is ideastream reporter and producer Darrielle Snipes. We're about to begin the audience Q&A. We welcome questions from everyone, City Club members, guests, students, and those of you joining us via our webcast. If you'd like to tweet a question, please tweet it to @thecityclub, and our staff will try to work it into the program. We want to remind you that your questions should be brief and to the point. To ask a question, please form a line behind the microphones in the front of the room, and may we have the first question, please?
Yes, you can. So we visited Philadelphia for Leadership Cleveland class 10 years ago. I don't know if you spoke to us or not at that trip, but a lot of things have happened in 10 years. Huh? Question is, speaking of sustainability, a lot of us in Cleveland are thinking that long-term sustainability also has to do with educating kids and making sure that, you know, our children grow up in a city where there's great education. Recently became a compact city similar to Denver with the relationship between districts and charters. I'm just wondering how you two think about that in Philadelphia and Denver in terms of charter schools working with district schools, working together to try to improve education. And is that really important to keeping a city sustainable?
Well, I'll start. I mean, clearly, let's just talk about the people we're attracting back. All of us are attracting. You've got a huge millennial bulge right now. So you've got people in their 20s, not yet with children. If we want to keep them in the city, we need jobs and we need schools. Now, clearly, you have multiple modes of doing that. I mean, public schools work very well, charters. I become agnostic. Whatever works and produces results, I'm not an ideologue on one side or another. We inherited lots of school buildings from the teens and 20s of the last century, so we simply had to repurpose them. But I think, first of all, for the middle class, absolutely essential. For those people in our cities who do not have the same background and same opportunity, if we can't get public education right, we're really paralyzing people in poverty for a very long time. So I don't think I put job growth first and education second in terms of the key priorities for all of our cities.
In Colorado, we have something that we refer to as the Colorado paradox. And that is that we are attracting a significant number of individuals that are very highly educated from someplace else. And
You got my daughter, so.
we built the city and they came, but we are educating, I mean, we're bringing in this educated workforce, but we are really working hard to address the needs of our own population so that we can grow the workforce internally. And I, as well as Paul has said, I am agnostic about whether it's public or charter. I think the beauty of it is as many options on the table as possible, because every demographic and every type of student needs something different that's going to spark their future. And we're just continuously looking for new ways. We just added the first downtown school in 100 years. And it is a charter, and it is actually a charter school located inside Denver Public Schools headquarters. And it's an experiential school where downtown is their campus. and now we're working on the middle school. So it's fully embraced.
And if I could add to that, John, again, from our perspective, we know as we grow the population base and begin to attract more and more residents, one of our goals is obviously to keep the residents that we currently have. If you look at our State of Downtown report, you'll see that actually one of our largest growth age groups is 35-year-olds to 44-year-olds. Again, that tells us that people are staying longer. They're most likely starting families or creating partner relationships. And our ability to have schools, to give them choices, and we do, by the way, the Cleveland International School, for example, which is being built over at Cleveland State, a great asset. They are not open yet, and they already have a significant waiting list. MC Squared STEM School, obviously at various locations here in downtown. And as you know, our developers are now starting to think through those types of questions. Dick Pace with Cumberland Development, who's looking to develop the lakefront, is proactively thinking about creating a school as part of his lakefront development because he knows the residential base he creates there is going to take advantage of that amenity. And the more schools we can create, the more options we can create, the more we can work overall with the Cleveland school system to continue their improvement over a period of time. And by the way, you may not know that for the first time, I think in a long time, the enrollment in Cleveland Public Schools has increased in the last year. And that's a great statistic. It's a great tribute to the progress that's being made. So schools are vitally important to our long-term strategy.
Not to be glib, but if you're going to get young people, get your dog parks first. Dogs come first, kids come second. That's the sequence.
We did that.
Thank you. I am also recently relocating back to Cleveland from the DC, Maryland area. One of the things I want to talk about or ask about is the transportation infrastructure. Coming from an area like that where there's many modes of transportation and then coming to Cleveland and there's few options, but there's some options. But I want you to talk to us about what kind of growth do you see coming down the line in the areas of transportation infrastructure?
Well, from my perspective, and I know Joe Calabrese was here a moment ago with the Regional Transit Authority. I'm not sure if he had to leave, but again, RTA is a significant partner of ours. The downtown business community, downtown stakeholders fully embraced the Euclid Corridor project years ago, and I think by any definition, it is a significant success. That the Health Line, the BRT system, connects University Circle, connects downtown. There's been massive amounts of investment up and down. It's a great transportation connection between those 2 points, those 2 employment points. But more importantly, now you're starting to see the infill in the Midtown area and some of the job growth that's occurring there. So from our perspective, that was a very important step. We as a community have embraced the trolley system in downtown, the green trolleys. The business community, again, helps to subsidize those trolleys to make them free. And we work very closely with RTA in order to accomplish that. And that's a great way to get around downtown and build on some of the assets that we have.
But how does that structure impact the outlier communities so that if you're talking about bringing, people into downtown Cleveland, does those infrastructures go to those outside or suburban communities that, draw people into coming down to Playhouse Square or coming down to the different festivals that are happening downtown? So how do you get them there when you don't want them driving and, we have environment and we have all these things going on. So how do we then, is there, room for growth going to the outliers?
There is, I think, room for growth. And again, going back to RTA, they created a BRT connection with the Lakewood and the western suburbs, which I believe has been very successful. I think Cleveland State University has the naming rights for that. But it's the same concept that you're describing, is how do we create public transit options and other types of options. Obviously, for example, the community through our sustainability programs is bringing bike share to Cleveland. Downtown Cleveland will be the first investment for that program in the months to come. So we agree we need these alternative forms of transportation. We need to continue to invest in our public transportation system, our RTA. And by the way, I think everybody knows that RTA is going through some public hearings currently about its service needs. It's challenged. It's challenged in an environment where their costs have escalated. And to be honest, the state of Ohio is not a significant contributor to the budget of RTA. So we're very much advocating at the state level to try to increase that because it's not sustainable if it's only supported by the fare box and by local sales tax revenue. So we're very cognizant of that. We know we have to generate more revenues as a community on behalf of the system, But we also know that looking forward, you know, Philadelphia is a great example. I'm less familiar with your transit system. Those options have to be part of our long-term strategy from a sustainability perspective as well as a talent attraction basis. Why? Because the Generation Z that Tammy mentioned earlier are going to want those options.
Yeah, I think Denver and Philadelphia are two polar extremes of getting to the same point. We have a legacy transit system. We bring 290,000 commuters into the downtown from across the region each day. It was an old system that we've completely reinvested in upgrading, et cetera. Tammy can talk. Denver has financed a whole new regional rail system over the last decade or two.
Yeah, we actually just built out the largest regional transit system ever built out at one time in the United States. So we're just getting ready to open up our line to the airport. If you've been to Denver, the airport's really far from downtown, right? It's 23 miles, and 10 miles of it are once you get in the airport just to get to the terminals. But that'll open up in April, and it was a voter-approved initiative. You know what? It is tough. It's tough to fund transit right now. It's tough to fund it everywhere. And it really takes the community standing up and saying, we have to find every way to make it happen because it is a game changer, make no mistake. But at the same time, you have to integrate all of these other modes of transportation. Don't underestimate bike share and biking. When we interviewed some of the most innovative companies, 50 of them in Denver, we asked what 3 economic development efforts could we implement to support them best, and biking was number 2. So who would have thought 10 years ago that bike paths, bike infrastructure were an economic development imperative? Secondly, we really worked to bring a lot of car share programs in. And then, I will tell you that right now we're really looking at how do we prepare for automated vehicles, driverless vehicles. And also, we are looking just from a transportation component of goods, what do we do with drones? We're really seriously looking at how do you integrate and prepare for what kind of drone system you need in your downtown. Because when it comes, it's going to come fast. And driverless vehicles, within 10 years, they will be a very active part of the system in many of our major urban cores. A very active part. It's going to coast up, and then all of a sudden it's going to be there. And you need to make sure your infrastructure is ready. You've started to think about policies, and be prepared for it so you can be on the front end of it.
So just a real quick follow-up with your transit system. How much did it cost, and how long was the planning before it came to where it is today?
We took it to the voters before, and it failed pretty miserably, frankly. And then we brought it back to the voters and started kind of all over again. So it was a combination of a couple different systems. But it actually connects most of our region, bringing all the regional suburbs connecting to downtown. But it includes transit lines, bus system. It's pretty comprehensive. So it goes across the board.
So how much did that cost to get that all together?
I can't quote off the top of my head the transit piece of it, but I can get it back. No. We'll tweet it out. How's that?
All right.
And by the way, the bus rapid transit system, which by the way, RTA's Healthline system was voted the #1 BRT system in North America, is a very effective cost alternative. We struggled, as many of us know in the room, for 25, 30 years thinking through how do we connect our 2 employment hubs of downtown and University Circle, and it took us a ways to get there, but we think we made a great decision. And by the way, that entire line, I think it serves 9 miles total, only cost us $200 million.
And just as somebody who's been in and out of your town with every 4 or 5 years, what has happened on Euclid is just remarkable. Having been here 10 or 15 years ago, it was a wasteland. For those of you who don't remember that, I'm sure you do. And the amount of investment that is built around that transit line is really huge. Very big success for you.
So Joe's been really influential in unifying the core areas and sections of Cleveland. In Denver and Philadelphia, I'd be extremely interested to hear how you unify an area in the Midwest where we're very suburban-based minded people. Suburbanism is kind of the new message a lot of developers are trying to, influence in certain out parcels of the city. And Cleveland's one of those regions where we really, in the last 20 years, have lost 3 major employers in my mind. You know, we've lost Progressive, we lost American Greetings, and we lost Eaton to suburban-based communities where density really drives development, which drives economics. So I'd be really interested to hear what Philadelphia and Denver has done to unify the outparcel cities and regions to really help them understand that the heart is at the city level, the economic engine, the heart of the city, and how you get them into buying into, you know, taking 3,000 employees from downtown Philadelphia and putting them, you know, 40 miles out into a suburb, really the drastic change that can create on a city.
Let's start with one simple fact, which is that there's not a single fast growth suburb that is not around a fast growth city. So the fate of your central city and how well it's growing is going to impact. So it's not an either or proposition. And clearly those of us in the downtown business are single-minded about the downtown, but I think we're very conscious that all our regions are multinodal in their employment centers. I think what we know clearly is there's not a single employment center today that isn't trying to move towards the mixed use that we have in our downtowns. So I think we're obviously very obsessed with building our downtown, with connecting it to the region, but when we make the case for downtown growth, it's not at the expense of the suburbs. We don't see their growth at our expense. We see the region as a whole expanding. That would be the simple answer. I wasn't sure which side you were arguing for, whether you want to grow the suburbs or grow the city in your question.
How do you unify the suburban market to understand that, you know, moving 3,000 employees, although very influential to the city, in a mid-sized market like Cleveland, you're really slowing down the bottom.
Well, I mean, I'll just say our experience is lots of firms who 10 or 15 years ago moved to the suburbs are desperate for the talent that is clustering in our cities. And so either they're putting small offices back in the city center, or our growth of co-working space is not young entrepreneurs. It's often firms from outside the city who are testing the market coming back in. So I think what everyone is seeing is that this huge cluster of well-educated millennials and slightly older in our city center are a talent magnet that's drawing firms. So we've got lots of folks who went out who are starting to come back now. So I think that you can build on. There are firms who will always be successful in the suburbs. It's not either or, but where the growth, where the talent, where the innovation is happening is in our city centers today.
Yeah, we have, you know, in the U.S., we have about 2 baby boomers leaving the workforce for every new employee coming in. So the old days, we hunted for elephants, right? We wanted to get the big corporation, and we wanted to land it in our city. And that's great. If that happens, you know, that's a gift. But at the same time, it's no longer the big hunt for the corporation. It's the big hunt to get the workforce, because the companies will follow. So then you back it down and you say, well, what does that workforce want? We know very clearly there have been enough studies done about what this future workforce wants. Make no mistake, it is urban centers. So, you know, you're starting to see this transition back. At the same time, your suburbs need to be healthy. You know, there are people and there are types of companies that are better fits for the suburbs than they are the center city. It's balancing it all out. Denver's a little different because we are, you know, out in the Rocky Mountain West. There aren't a lot of urban centers, so by that very nature, we pick up a little bit more of that than maybe some other cities do. And just a quick side note, that was $6.5 billion was our fast track system.
There you go.
And just to add, again, that talent attraction element is really critical. And if you think of, for example, placemaking in the context of talent attraction, that's why what we're doing on public square is so important. That's why the connectivity to the lake through the pedestrian bridge that the Group Plan Commission is working on is so vitally important, because we know if we can create the place, we will attract this next generation, whether it's millennials or whether it's Generation Zs.
It's all about the Zs right now.
And the reality is a great example that was E&Y, which made a decision, obviously, to go to the Flat Sea Spains project, retain thousands of jobs in downtown Cleveland. It's a major trading center for the Midwest. They're bringing people into Cleveland every day. And again, it's anchored, you know, a $750 million investment on the mouth of the Cuyahoga River. So there are opportunities. I think we just need to continue to generate them and again create the type of place that attracts talented individuals.
We know that this workforce will take less money to live and work in a center city than they will, as a general rule, to work in the suburbs, far out. So it is a selling point. And just one quick fun story, a company unnamed met with us and said, hey, we're thinking about moving to the Denver region. We're only meeting with you, Tammy, to tell you that we're not coming downtown, so don't ask us, because we want you to be able to tell your board that you met with us and, you did your job. And I asked why, and they said, because we are all about green. Green is just really very important to us. So I thought they meant sustainability, and I went on about the urban core and why this is so important, and they did the talk to the hand and said, no, we mean grass. We want a building with grass all around it, and our employees will sit out on the grass and they'll gather on their breaks. And I think that suburban headquarters for the right company are perfect, but I have never seen employees go gather on the grass on their break. But anyway, we
This was a lawnmower company, though, wasn't it? Right?
I only wish.
All right.
But the point is that the conversation we had with them after is, give us one more day. We brought in all the data that showed this is not what your future employees want. Secondly, you can't get more sustainable than a center city. And then they ended up coming. We made the flip. But when they came, they decided they needed all kinds of parking because they weren't fully ready to commit. I guess they wanted grass and parking lots. But now, only 30% of their giant parking structure is being used. And they're coming back to us saying, what do we do with all of this? And so it is a mindset and a mind shift with CEOs of larger companies who have to really get in tune with what that workforce wants and how they're going to work going forward. Because I'm telling you, they are a Fortune 500 company and they didn't see it. So whatever will make a company successful in this region or any region, that's where you want them located. If it's better in the suburbs, then put them there. Because a thriving company is better than no company.
So I'm going to kind of piggyback on that greenscape because I think Cleveland is doing a great job so far of accessing the lake. I mean, that's a big deal for the city. And, when the city was, started, you didn't, they built industrial, there was things right on the lake. Now we have Edgewater Park, being revitalized and, we're trying to make more public access. I guess this is for you, Joe. Are there talks, are you talking with people about helping us, not only as residents, but as workforce, be able to access the lake publicly? Not where you're building, developing is great, but if you develop a private, condo, you don't have access there. I just want you to kind of talk about, maybe Philadelphia and Denver had some similar issues, but, are there things happening that maybe give us more access to the lake?
Well, I can state unequivocally that Denver has mountains, but I don't think they have a big lake.
We have a serious water.
The answer to that is yes, we're extremely sensitive to that. And when you think about our lakefront, you mentioned our industrial history. And the reality is that, yes, Cleveland's industrial might was at the mouth of the Cuyahoga River. It wasn't down in Gary, Indiana, in terms of what would happen in Chicago. So we do have that history. But I think we can touch the river and touch the lake in a way, whether it's through the towpath, whether it's through Edgewater Park, whether it's what's going on at North Coast Harbor. And by the way, how many of you know that there's a marina now, a transient marina, where you can go down and rent paddle boats and enjoy the lake and touch it in a way that maybe a number of years ago we couldn't. So it's a question of ensuring that as we develop those assets, and yes, we need developers to come to the table and work with us and make investments, but we need to protect the public boardwalk areas. The Flats East Bank, I think, is a great example of that. I think they have a 900-foot boardwalk that allows you to touch the river without spending a dime. You can go down there and enjoy yourself and really enjoy the water and that experience. So I think the key is balancing our industrial heritage and doing so in a way that allows us to touch the water, creating things like we're creating at at Edgewater and Whiskey Island. Those are great traditional type of beach experiences. If you go to a weekend night in summer at Whiskey Island, there's tons of people. If you go to what the Metro Parks is doing so aggressively with Edgewater Park, great asset. But we also have the opportunity to sit in a nice cafe and, adjoining the river and watch a 650-foot sculpture pass us. And that's part of what I think very few communities can claim as an asset and as amenity.
What I would add is, I mean, having been coming out here multiple times, you're a city, a downtown, that had nodes of strength and big gaps in between. And you don't want to leap way over here to solve a problem. You take the various nodes of strength which are built around work, and now people want to live near work. You've got a great arts and cultural district. You've done great activity on Euclid Avenue. You've got a great warehouse district with a giant gap in between. And don't just go flying way over there because that's where the lake is, and I'm not arguing against it, but take those assets and strength, and each year you're incrementally growing them. What you're doing in the square in the center is absolutely essential. You'll finally get those giant parking lots developed because people will want to be near your central square. So do it incrementally. Yes, you want to be on the river. Yes, you want to be on the lake, but don't lose sight of the fact that it's a live, work, arts, culture, education cluster that you're building around.
But coming from a city with no water,
Got this little creek that runs
we
through.
do. We have I'm actually from Michigan, so when I went there and they said that there was a river, I kept looking for it, but it was actually like
Cherry Creek, right?
it's actually very beautiful, but it's a different mindset about water. But I will say that that water is a huge asset to the city, and it's about the brand too. It's about the brand, and I think that if you got further west, you might be surprised how many people don't know that this city is on water. And I think that there's something about being on water that says this is a healthy, vibrant, active community, all the wonderful things that come with a city built around water. And the more that you can showcase that when you have a national platform, shot after shot after shot of that water is going to change the way people view the city, because I really would. I'd love to do a National Geography quiz and see how many people can say that they know that it's there.
But a decent biking trail, a jogging trail just along the edge does wonders.
Yeah.
Development could come 10 years later. I agree, get people to your water, get them to your river, but you don't necessarily have to be where all your development is right now.
I'm lucky enough to own the place I live downtown, but I know that in a lot of ways, at least in Cleveland, that's a unicorn. There's not a lot of real estate that's available for purchase, and obviously they're building a new apartment. It seems like every couple months there's a new one announced, but there's not been a lot of growth in the for sale real estate. Whereas in the other neighborhoods, Detroit Shoreway, Tremont, Ohio City, well, less so Ohio City, but in there, they're building brand new townhouses and things of that nature. So I'm curious as to what it'll take to get those projects to happen downtown, and then also as far as the rental situation, in Denver, did you experience the same kind of growth where it was rental first and then eventually developers started to invest in for sale properties?
Yeah. So we've had just massive growth in our residential population downtown, but also in Colorado in general. But we aren't building condos. And we have some very tough public policy that is causing that to happen, causing developers not to develop condos. This construction defects legislation really puts a very significant weight on developers in terms of their risk if anything goes wrong with the construction. So much so that people aren't building condos. It hasn't impacted the growth of the center city, and I think over time when those policies are changed, we'll see more condo development. But until we address that issue, which we're trying to at the State House, we're going to keep building apartments.
I would say things are cyclical too. I mean, we in most of our cities built a lot of condominiums up till 2007, 2008. Obviously, we all knew what happened at that point. Most lenders are quite gun shy about doing condos. Now, we have a tremendously diverse product of old historic townhouses, apartment buildings, converted buildings. There are a whole slew, those of you old enough to remember all the apartments of the 80s got converted to condominiums. So just because they're rental now doesn't mean they can't become ownership. I think we're in a cycle now where a lot of people have moved away from ownership nationally. You've got a younger demographic which is much more interested. I would be patient. Some of those rental units in 5 years could get converted to condominium. The demand will shift. That you're getting housing product that's high quality is the key point. The ownership can change in a different time.
And again, thinking back to our historical evolution, right now we have about 6,000 apartment units in downtown Cleveland. We have about 900 condos. And I agree that that mix isn't what we want on a long-term basis. But if you think back, a lot of our strategies revolved around adaptive reuse and taking antiquated buildings or taking some of our old warehouses and converting them and using the federal tax credits, and then a number of years ago when the state credits came online, allowing those equity sources to drive those developments. Now the net result of them is that by federal rules you have to hang on to those investments for a period of time before you can make the transition. And going back to what happened in 2008, we as a community were just on the verge of beginning to see a transition from some of those first tier investments into condominiums. Well, the market shifted, obviously very, very aggressively. At the same time, it became very difficult to do ground up new construction. So right now, what we're seeing is not only continued demand for apartments, so the development community is responding to that, the financial community is responding to that, but we're also seeing now infill development on some of the parking lots that Paul mentioned a few moments ago. Projects like the Nucleus project, projects like the Weston project over in the Warehouse District with City Mark. Those are very, very important to us because, again, they create a different product mix. And ultimately, we think that'll create the foundation for us to revisit more critical mass high-rises from a condominium perspective. So I think we're going to see some evolution. To Paul's point, I think we will see that in the coming years, but we're still a few years off, I think, before we see an acceleration of that.
So this afternoon at the City Club, we've been enjoying the annual State of Downtown Forum. Our sponsors for today's event are PNC and the E.V. Bishop Company. Our community partner is the Downtown Cleveland Alliance. We thank all of you for your support. So thank you, panelists. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and this forum is now adjourned.
For information on upcoming speakers or for podcasts of the City Club, go to cityclub.org.